Hey, I'm Dan, and this is Dan's Planes. First off, I realize we're looking at my Mustang wings, but that's better than looking at my ugly mug while I tell you guys what's going on. I've completed the Zero updates to get it ready to fly now, and as I put together all my multiple videos into one long video that you're going to watch next, I found again that my phone did not record audio, and I didn't immediately check it after I recorded it so that I could have re-recorded it. I don't know why it's doing this. So I didn't include those segments except once, I think. So if things seem like I missed following up on something, or if it seems like I'm jumping around, it's because those sections are missing. So my apologies for that. I'm trying to do a better job that every time I record something, I go back and listen to it to make sure I am getting sound, but I don't know, again, what's happening. I've tried a different camera app. That doesn't do it. I just don't get it. It's been a problem since day one with this brand new phone. So back to the Zero again. Hope you enjoy. Welcome back to the second video of going through my Top Flight ARF Giant Zero, trying to get it ready for flight. So I noticed when I had plugged in my air, one has an O-ring, one does not. Then the same is true on the wing. But to hook them up, this red would connect to the blue on the wing. This blue would connect to the red on the wing. So I swapped these ends, and then I swapped these colors and rewrote which way was up and down on here. So I've taken care of that. I pulled the Robart tail wheel controller back out again because Brian had commented I need to put a battery into it. And I noticed a few things. Number one, I don't know why, but in the aft part of the fuselage, the seller had these chunks of pool noodles. So I've pulled them out and I plan to just throw them away, but I can't think of any reason why somebody would stuff those in there. If you guys have any ideas, please leave a comment. I'm stumped. Another thing I noticed is, I think I mentioned this in the previous video, this aux battery, if I'm looking at the right thing here, aux battery is going clear to the back, which is weird because, number one, it goes way back there to where I can't see it anymore. And there's no way somebody's hands could get back in there to put a battery. And there's no markings on the fuselage as if they cut it away and put a battery and then fixed it back up again. So I don't feel like there's an actual battery back there. It feels like this goes to the unit, because you've only got two things here. This one goes to the receiver, and then this says aux battery, but really it seems to be the unit. But there's nothing in unit 1, 2, or 3. So I'm not familiar with these at all. I don't know what this thing is doing. Also, I noticed it has a really weird connector on it. So that's not your typical receiver connector. So I don't know what to do with this thing. You know, one thought is, if it's working, let it be. But I believe I was having it work intermittently, which is why I wanted to supply its own battery power to it. Kind of forgetting now there's so much stuff I've gone through on this plane already. But, yeah, I'm just thinking to myself here. Okay, well, that was me thinking. So that's where I'm at. If anybody has any thoughts or comments on that, by the time I post this, I probably will have figured out something. But my thought was just cut into this auxiliary battery cable, put a standard battery connector on there, and then I can connect a battery to it. But that leaves me with, how does the controller actually control the unit? There needs to be some wires that go to the actual unit, which sure seems like it would be these wires with a unique connector, but they're plugging into what this is saying is an aux bat. So I'm confused. I'm really confused. What else? So the engine running and cutting out kind of sounds like a air leak issue. I can only see that little bit of fuel line there when I'm running it. That's a 1/2 inch max. So I can't really see if there are bubbles or not. It's also on the bottom of the airplane. So I've taken another new tank, hooked that up. Problem I have is the machine screw that's in the stopper that compresses the metal plate behind it, thereby squeezing the stopper. That had a Phillips head, and that Phillips head stripped, like they seem to do a lot of times. So I have some stoppers, but they don't have that kind of stopper, so I don't have that kind. I want to upgrade to a newer clear tank, so I will get that on order, but while I'm waiting for that, I thought I could probably try to use this tank and see if it'll work. So that's what's going on with the engine. Okay, updates later. I've read the manual, which was not much help. Watched a couple YouTube vids. I learned that it had amp out, which means if the gear gets hung up in either direction, it stops the motor from operating until the gear is cycled again, which means it won't continue to burn up battery power or brown out the battery. So because of that, I'm not going to put a separate battery on this alone, adding a 4th battery to my overall system. I'm just going to leave it as is. It works, so don't fix what's not broken. I still don't understand why they describe this as the aux battery port, but when the videos I've seen and in this situation, this seems to go to the retract to control it. I would have thought that this would go in this port up here, being unit number 1 in orange. I would have expected that for unit number 1, but then unit number 2, where is it? Because you've got the aux battery there instead of just an open port. And then unit 3, you've got another open port. So it's still confusing to me, but it's working. So I'm going to put my phone back together and I'm going to put it back in there and glue it again and call that adventure done. You always want to check on planes that you get that are used. Our major stress points, meaning on the wings, the only thing holding the wings to the fuselage are 2 dowels in the front and 2 bolts in the back. And I usually find the dowels are okay, but more than once I've found these retaining bolt plates to have issues. And in this case, this one is starting to delam. So I want to get some thin CA in here, let it wick in there and clamp it. But both sides are delamming, and then I'm going to take some epoxy and put it on the back side here and on the front side, just to make sure that I'm covered. So mental note, always check those, because I was able to finally get the old air nozzle out of here. The switch that was in here previously went right up to one of the bulkheads. So I needed to put this piece of wood in here so that when I put the new switch in, this outside bolt will have something to go through. And then these two bolts hold to the switch itself. So then these two bolts hold to the switch, and then this bolt goes through to hold the switch onto the airplane. So I had to add some wood on both sides of this because of the way it turned out. So I'll be installing the switch next. When I had the engine on and I was going through and firming up the firewall, I was only able to reach through here to get some, what is this called? Scotch weld 460 on there. So I wasn't able to reach this. So while I've got the engine off, I'm going to go ahead and fill this with that Scotch weld 460. That'll be the last spot that I need to clean up. And I'll talk about the engine in the next clip or two. Here's the engine that's been refurbished by DA, which is Desert Aircraft. The thing looks brand new, which it should, because they replaced doggone 2/3 of it. Here's the list of everything they did over a page. I mean, they replaced cylinder screws, cylinder gaskets, reed valve retainer, piston rings, more bearings, gasket case, more bearings, more cylinder, spark plug, ignition cap, rebuild kit, choke plate, throttle plate. So they did a ton of stuff, which was very thorough and very expensive. Cost about 2/3 of what a new engine would cost. Overall, I was very impressed dealing with DA for the first time. I've always heard stories of how fantastic their customer service is. They don't charge labor to work on your engine. They just charge parts. And I had sent the engine in. I called them first, explained what the engine was doing, which it's like it would fire for 1 to 3 revolutions, and then it would not fire for a revolution, then fire for 1 to 3 revolutions and not fire. I put a new plug in, it seemed to get worse, and then sometimes when it would not fire, it would actually kill the engine. So they recommended I could spend days trying to troubleshoot what the problem was versus sending it in to them. So I sent it in, and I think they might have had it for a day or two before they gave me a call that they got it, and they had tested it and found a whole bunch of stuff with it and asked what I wanted to do. There was also problems with the ignition, so that's been fixed. So then I had them do the repair, which took a few days, and then they called, let me know the repair was taken care of, shipped it back quickly. So it was besides the cost, it was a painless process. and I'd highly recommend dealing with DA. So I've connected the ball joint to the throttle where it goes. It was kind of rubbing a little bit against the hole, so I went ahead and widened that a bit. Got the tubing on and tied it off. So I've got to get this to run through this quick connect, and I've got to set it up so that the throttle is opening and closing all the way, which the problem is the carburetor here faces towards the back, and I don't know if I can even get a mirror in there to be able to see what it's doing and how much it's opening and how much it's not. So I'm gonna have to finagle that a little bit. And what else? I've got to put the where'd it go? I've got to put the choke rod in here. I'm trying to figure out how that went. I don't know how that went exactly. So I've got to play with that. There it is. There's the choke rod. And it's threaded on the inside. So that makes me think that some threaded rod goes in there, and then a clevis goes onto the threaded rod and then connects to here. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Or it's just threaded rod with a Z-bend in it, and that would go here. But either way, got to get that put on, and then the ignition, and then putting the front end on. So the spinner and the prop and all that good stuff. So that's what's going on. I've also zip tied some of the wires here, trying to keep them together. Zip tied some of my battery wires. So I'm going to have a third battery in here. I'm not sure where to put it yet due to the CG, but somewhere I'll put a third battery in here because one battery is going to the receiver, one battery is going to the optical kill. So I need another battery to also go to the receiver. So I have two batteries going to the switch and two batteries going to the receiver. So that's what's going on so far. Working on the engine now. Princess and I are back. And Goliath's on the other side of the door. So these are the retract units from Sierra, giant retracts. I sent both of them in because one of them had about an inch of slop back and forth at the wheel. Daryl said these had been in a crash. So another surprise with buying a used airplane. So, you know, whether it's the engine, you check compression and you think it's good, then you find out 2/3 of it needs rebuilt, or whether it's hardy Sierra gear that you think is good and find out it's been in a crash. You just never know what you're getting when you buy used. You save money, but you never know what you're getting. So now is the time to put the gear back into the mechanisms and get the mechanisms hooked back up with the air tubing, and then screw them all in and put the covers back on. So that's the next order of business. Oh, the reason why I'm going to this is because I went to put the muffler on, and I kind of figured this. The muffler had large bolts in it. Come to find out they're 1/4 20, and the new cylinder head is requires a smaller bolt. So I either put smaller ones in or re-tap it to the 1/4 20. So that makes me wonder, did they run this engine with my muffler with the new parts, because they wouldn't have been able to connect it with that. So I'm gonna call them tomorrow and see what they say about that. It's kind of weird. So I had to stop working on the engine, but I've got everything hooked back up, the choke, the throttle, set the throttle on the servo best that I know how. I can't see it because the throttle plate faces towards the firewall. Can't get in there to see it. So just gonna have to run it and see where it's at. So I moved on to the gear because that's another thing that needs done. So I'm pulling out my lights to get them charged up before I put on the Velcro and put them on. Like I said, these are the Amazon $30 lights that I've talked about excuse me, in my other videos. And a critique that I've had was that you got this charge lead for a balance charger, but then you had one lead for a USB charger, so you have to charge one at a time. But I said if you buy enough of these kits, then you'll end up saving up enough leads that you'll finally have enough to charge 3 at a time. Well, look at what they did. The manufacturer did their USB they improved their USB first of all. Now you can do it with the older style and the newer style of USBs. So they've got 2 of them there. And then they've got 3 leads, so you can actually charge 3 lights at one time. So kudos to the manufacturer. Kudos to Easy Light Pro. They rocked on. All right, so I'm going to throw those on and we'll call it a day. Well, here we go. We got the rebuilt DA ready to fire it up. I set up the toe in on my wheels way off, so I'm going to have to adjust those after I get done doing this. But getting closer to being ready to fly, I've got to do the engine run and dial in the endpoints, paint the canopy, which paint is on order, install it, and do CG on it and adjust the toe in, and then she's ready to fly. So we are getting there. Today we are talking loose mufflers coming off of the engine. So I ran the engine up and the muffler kept falling off. I tried medium strength blue Loctite because that's all I had. Figured it would not work, and it did not work. So I posted the question on several places and asked around some friends for suggestions on what to do about it, and got lots of different comments. But I took the common threads that people were saying and combined them. And what I'm going to do is use Nordlock washers. There are these washers that have slats, I guess you call them, slots drilled into them. So I'm going to use those washers. I'm going to use Permatex Ultra Copper gasket maker. This handles up to 700 degrees heat. This was called out by name by several people, so I'm not going to use the red Permatex high strength red, using the Permatex Ultra Copper. Don't really know the differences, but that's what people called out by name, so I'm going with it. And then thread locker, high temperature. So this does not say high strength, but being red usually means high strength. But I found Loctite made a medium strength high temperature, and it was red. So medium strength was red. So I'm not sure besides high temperature, if this is considered high strength or not. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this off one day or not. But hopefully I won't need it off for quite a long time, so I'm going to use that. So I'm going to clean the parts thoroughly with my homemade cleaner, which has dish soap in it, which should be a degreaser. And then I'm also going to wipe it down with acetone, because I feel like acetone cleans up dang near anything and everything. So I'll clean them up those two ways and then put all this together. So ultimately, both of these, the gasket and the thread locker, said they really need 24 hours to fully cure. So I am going to leave it for at least 24 hours before I try to run the engine. Then lastly, everybody said, this is not in the gasket instructions at all. This was people on forums were saying you need to run the engine, let it get hot, and then re-crank down the bolts. Now, some of the thread lockers said that they were basically adjustable, or you could adjust after installation. This thread locker did not say that, so I hope when I crank down on it, I'm not going to break apart the red thread locker seal or lock that's happening. But all I can do is try. So these were the things that people recommended. I hope 1 or 3 of them will work. We will see. I screwed a screw into the gasket maker spout, and I'm going to keep it and its instructions in a gallon Ziploc bag. So I hope it's not going to cure in there to where you can't use the spout again. But we'll deal with it if it does happen. I forgot to mention the thread locker's heat range is up to 450 degrees. I received my Warbird Colors green paint. I used the A1 or A2 Japanese Army olive green, and it seems to match beautifully with the Top Flight Army green of the Zero. So I can now tape off the canopy and then paint it. We're back with the wings because I just can't get enough. I have to redo my work on setting the toe-in angle on the wheels. I talked to some friends of mine, and I should have done that before I tried to put toe-in on it. I put way too much in, so they recommended about 2 to 3 degrees. So I've got to open these back up again, uninstall to be able to get to this bolt in here. So I have to take the cover off and then uninstall the actual retract unit, and then undo this bolt and twist this, making it better. So here we go, doing rework, my biggest pet peeve, doing work over again. But here we are, just knock it out. Okay, these are adjusted now. I think they're more around 2 to 3 degrees now. When you look at it head on, and it's just slightly toe in. So look at it head on. So I think we're good. So I'll just put it all the bolts and screws back together. Well, for better or worse, I've put painter's tape on the inside of the canopy and tried very carefully cutting with an X-Acto to remove the excess tape. And I've definitely scored the surface in spots. So I don't know if paint... I know, Princess, I did the best I could. I don't know if the paint will fill that in. I hope so. But I'm not very good at finishing. You know, you got to know your strengths in life, and finishing is not my strength. Yeah, well, whoa, hi. Okay, come on up. You going to inspect the work now? So, will it pass the test of looking good 3 foot or 5 foot away? Yeah, should be fine. But my recovering perfectionism is definitely bubbling up on this on ways I could have or might have been able to do it better. I thought about doing the clear masking that you paint on, but I've never done that before, and I don't know if you can see what you've painted. I mean, I don't have a very steady hand, so I don't know how that would have gone. But I've got my air compressor ready to go, got the heat gun ready to go, got the container for my paint to mix it, to mix paint and Windex and Floetrol in there. So ready to paint on the inside of this. And then we'll have to cut away the non-needed exterior parts like here to get it down to look like that. But it'll be slightly different because the canopy is slightly different. Don't know why, because they're both top Flite Zeros, but they are. All right, Princess, say goodbye. All right. Oh yeah? Okay then. So here's the bird cage with the tape removed. Good news and bad news. In the spots where paint went underneath the tape, I could use my fingernail and scrape the paint off. So that's good. Bad news, in a couple spots, like there, the paint ripped off when the tape was pulled out. The edges were not absolutely crisp, as you can tell. You can tell from this. So, will it look good from 3 to 5 feet away? Yeah. So, it'll work. So where the paint is chipped off, I'm going to very carefully try to touch that up with a brush. Then move on to installing it. I've cut the plastic away from the canopy, shaped it where it needs to be. I really can't get my hands back up underneath to make sure that I've got wood. Here she is with the canopy screwed on. And when I screwed that on, I put CA in the holes, so hopefully it won't strip out. But it's a lot of vibration with the gas engine, and they're just simple wood screws. Some of them are going into hardwood, most of them are going into softwood. So we'll see how long they actually last. So I forgot to do a video showing that the airplane has balanced, but I balanced it. And I did some wire ties on some wire to do a little wire management. And she is now ready to fly. So just gotta wait on the weather and charge batteries and go to town. So that concludes going over the top Flite Zero that was used when I bought it and all the changes that I did to it to get it ready to fly the way I would do it. Hope you enjoyed that. If you would, post a like and subscribe. If you'd like to fund future projects, my Patreon is in the description. I wish you the very best of blue skies and good speed.